is with the Texas Water Development Board. Ms. Blue, you're the only one that registered to testify, so if you would, please state your name, who you represent, and your position on the bill.
Hi, Chairman Harris, Vice Chair Martinez, members of the committee, and guests. Good to see you all again. I'm Natalie Blue with the Water Development Board, and I am just here as a resource, so if you'll have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you, members. Any questions for the resource witnesses? Representative Villalobos.
So one of the previous witnesses talked about the maximum sustained pumping volume. Is that something your organization has looked at before, or what are your thoughts about that?
Yes, essentially that exercise would be done with one of our groundwater availability models, and we have done that in the past, back in 2011, at the request of our board members as towards the beginning of the desired future condition process resulting in MAG. So it's definitely something that is doable with our groundwater models.
When y'all did that in 2011, was it a statewide or was it for certain aquifers?
We did it for all the aquifers in the state and the GMAs.
But I guess that number from 2011 is the basis for what we see today when we talk about MAG and...
No, it was kind of just an informational number for our board members to be aware of. And we have had some model updates since then and new data and information that goes into that model. So the number would likely be different than what it was calculated in 2011.
Okay. Were you around that time? Did it seem extremely beneficial to the board? Why have they not asked to... Yeah, an updated study.
I was not around then.
Sorry. I was also in high school, so.
Yeah, just graduated college, but my understanding is that it's a helpful number just because it was a new process back then to our board members, and they just kind of wanted to understand it. But that's kind of all I know about it. I'm sorry.
Okay. Those are all my questions right now.
Thanks.
Members, Representative Romero.
Natalie, I asked the previous witness a question in terms of like developing the scope. In reading the bill, do you see a time frame by which the scope would be developed, and when should we be able to see and understand what the scope of the study would include?
So I have not seen the substitute version, but looking at the introduced version, the scope is fairly laid out well, and like that's the scope to me. And to me, that scope is slightly different than a scope that you might develop for a groundwater surface water interaction study. I believe you might have been asking Mr. Ward this question. And we do have some ideas for a scope on more data collection that would then feed into a future groundwater model update. But to me, these are two separate exercises.
And understanding what's available, I mean, I'm going to the finish line and going, okay, what does the finish line actually look like? When do we determine, yes, this is a super prolific, aquifer that can have enough water for X number of citizens, and people in other parts of, let's say where I'm from in DFW, can actually maybe consider this, or no, we should not, because then you would create a real conflict and actually a harm, if we want to use that word, to the region where these aquifers are and all the residents around. In order to get there, when I hear something like we're planning for future use or other people future development and or export, how do you come up with that number? Is it an estimate? And my concern was that's an estimate of who could, maybe they never did, and that number could really be inflated.
Right. For the, future pumping that the groundwater management areas put into their model runs, they will typically use what is in our state water plan for future groundwater projects, so that everything that's captured in the state water plan is included in their planning, essentially. So any export projects that were flagged in the state water planning process by the regional water planning groups, that would be determined by the regional water planning groups. So it's kind of a self-reported, difficult to check and verify, I would say, on my end. But that's how that future project would be incorporated into a MAG run.
And how long does that projection go forward? How many years are you looking forward?
Those are 50-year timelines.
50 year. So how do you plan 50 years in advance if you have someone that's coming in and saying they want to put in an export up, opportunity, if you will, like this, you certainly cannot see something like this coming.
Well, that's why the planning cycles are 5 years. They happen every 5 years. So every 5 years, the districts redo their joint groundwater planning, but also the regional water planning groups are doing their planning in 5-year cycles.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Representative Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, and you and I haven't talked specifically about this, but I've been talking, well, since during session about the need to have a dynamic 3D ability to see what's going on in our aquifer. And my understanding is the Water Development Board with its data model can kind of do something like that, but it's not nearly as, it's not like some of the things we envision when we look at what you can do with technology, even what the oil field and some of the rest of them do in defining what stratas look like, what rates of flow look like, all those other things. If you had if the Water Development Board had the resources to put a water purveyor facing resource for them to put all of their water data, what's your pump models, what does that all look like, what do your well drillers look like, and you built that in. I would like to know more from the Water Development Board regarding what it would take to create a truly dynamic model that was constantly moving forward. Now, I've been told that maybe I don't want to know that because, it might create some stressing. But I will tell you that as an agile, adaptive state, we can address the things we know readily. Where we run into problems is when we wait until we're at a point of catastrophe and then we're reacting to that. So I would ask for you to look at and consider and help me understand as an agency what it would take to get us to that point to whether we're talking about East Texas and this particular aquifer, maybe it is so prolific it doesn't matter. I don't know, but no one can really tell us or show us. We can only go with the limited data that we have. That the same technology would be implemented in the Edwards Aquifer, which is a very different type of aquifer, and across the state is what I would envision. But I would really like to hear what the resource requirements would be, because I think that's something we need to look at if we're really serious as a committee and as a DIAS about making certain that we're not making these decisions based on